All right, welcome back to the Team Story Cup once again. Before we even talk about anything, top right corner of the map, you guys can see the scores displayed at all times. Keep in mind, it's a best of 9 between these two teams, not between these particular players. But currently leading the pack, 3-2, spawning here in the northern position of Polar Knight, the 12 o'clock spawn, playing for Axiom. It's their team captain, Crank.
In the bottom position, we have the Red Zerg. It's Liquid Ret. A bit of a surprise, although who else would they have on their roster?
Well, they got Snoot, I know that much.
I don't think Snoot's. I think Snoot's traveling.
Ooh,
so he won't be
that's a
able
good
to play.
point. But you know, it's not like Rhett was like a B-leaguer that they pulled. I mean, Rhett pulled out an all-kill versus like Complexity not too long ago in the Acer Team Story Cup. So this is a guy who I kind of fear a lot of you guys might be underdogging in this series because, well, Rhett hasn't had the best results recently, but ever since he kicked that smoking habit, right? Ever since he decided to refocus his efforts on StarCraft 2, he kicked ass in DreamHack Bucharest. We had the pleasure of casting some of those games. He's been performing incredibly well in the Acer Team Story Cup, and while he doesn't have a big tournament win under his belt, guys, keep in mind, this is a Zerg player who can certainly contend with Crank, and he is going to be opening this with a 10 pool.
Okay, awesome. Now, what is Crank gonna do? That's really the big question here. Is he gonna get something before the Nexus, or is it gonna be a Nexus first? Because if it's Nexus first, oh my God, it's gonna be a Nexus first. Okay.
Oh no, if this was a Gateway expand, he might be okay, but you know, every Protoss today getting caught a little off guard with a bit of greed here, Zombie. I mean, Hero Game 1 was just absurd. We're kind of seeing a repeat of that almost. Since this game is going to get into the heck here in just a moment, guys. Quick shout out to, of course, the Lich King hiding down here on Polar Knight, frozen in the ice, but Ling's now moving across the map. This wasn't like a... I mean, Red has to cause damage with this. I mean, you cut workers for a 10 pool. Everyone knows this straight up. The problem is, even if you cancel your opponent's Nexus off of an early Nexus like this, doesn't really necessarily put you in a good spot because you're still down on workers, so he's going to have to do a bit of damage behind this. Now, Forge did come down for Crank, so he can put a pylon in his... or sorry, cannon in his mineral line if that completes in time, but coming on top of the ramp, going to mineral walk through this. Okay. Buying time for that cannon, I guess, to get down. Tries to surround it. Ling's on top of this, though. And the workers...
This is not going that well.
No, not at all. Red actually maintains all the Lings for the time being. About to lose a couple more, but these probes are incredibly weak. And Crank has lost a lot of time mining just holding this off. This isn't like stacking your main mineral line. So now having killed 9 workers, evening it up almost, Red can certainly macro out of this. He didn't end the game like I think he wanted to, and he's not exactly in the best spot because the Nexus did complete, but he's not out of the game.
It's so interesting because usually when this happens, you don't see them, you don't see what Crank did. They usually try and cancel whatever they have of the natural and then build the cannon in the main because they have the Forge, and then try and, do something with that, like a 4-gate or a Dark Shrine. The fact that he brought down the probes and actually held the Nexus is probably a little surprising. And it might be a little worrying, but Rhett is just taking advantage. You know that Crank's not going to be able to attack for so long because he didn't get a gateway. He got a Forge. What's he going to have? A bunch of probes? No, he's not going to do anything. The off chance that he could do a cannon rush is probably also not going to happen because he's going to be investing so much in chrono boosting out those probes. He's not going to want to stop to get a cannon.
Well, that he's already seen Lings available. I mean, outright, even without knowing about all these other economic damage. With Lings on the map, it's hard to get cannons down. But words right out of my own mouth. On top of that, too, with a cannon invested into this, that's the second gateway potentially going down, right? Like, this is... it's too much, too hard to deal with. So, definitely the right choice out of Red to take that third. If he just stayed on 2 bases, he could try and play it safe, but I like that he just really pressed the issue of what he's got going for him.
Well, the good news is that Crank has just, skyrocketed in terms of probes, 25 to 20. Of course, Rhett is investing into the third, so his, boom of drones has not really hit yet, and that should be happening in the next, minute, 2 minutes. But Crank's doing kind of well for himself. When that attack happened, it was only 11 drones to 10 probes when all was said and done, and then Rhett, of course, droned up after that. But it wasn't like he was down to 2 probes.
Right.
And, in a terrible position. So Crank might be able to come out of this, especially if, he does some aggression that maybe gets, a few queens or, really makes Rhett over-invest, or even if he just does all-in, because all-ins are always powerful. Am I right? Right.
Well,
Okay.
Protoss, I think, have the more all-ins associated with their strategies than any other race, but Worth noting too, despite that worker scuffle in the early game, I really think like so much was lost to that lost mining time. That was like every pro pulled to the natural, then dancing around, then goes back to the main afterwards. I mean, regardless of whether that's going to echo into the mid game or not, one thing that's worth noting is we do have weapon upgrades coming out of our Protoss player Crank, which means dealing with Zerglings is going to be a lot easier, a lot more viable. But as far as sniping off a queen, technically, I mean, this is one player, I gotta give a shout out to him, from Samsung Galaxy Trend. One thing we love seeing him do is he'll put a pylon down and take 7 zealots and knock down a third every single time. But even with the +1 upgrades, the problem is Crank's not gonna have the production facilities to do this. We see a Robo now coming down, but it's not like there's 5 extra gateways. It's not even like there's 4 extra gateways. He's stuck on 1 gateway of production for the time being.
Should be adding a few more.
There we
as
go.
we say that, he adds 3. Could add even more as the secondary pylon finishes. But this could still be that all-in. It's a very popular map for the Immortal Sentry all-in. We saw that a lot at the World Finals, in fact. And yeah, it will be 7 gateways. Robo, it's going to be that all-in. And Red has got to identify this is happening. He's got to get an overload in there and see that.
And the problem is, too, with roaches coming out, as we all know, roaches alone don't beat this. You could have a massive amount of roaches, but the force fields will cut those numbers in like eighths and slices and halves over and over again, so the Immortals never have to fight more than like 10 or 12 roaches at most at a time. So, I mean, the one advantage is we look at Polar Knight, right? Lots of big engagement series, huge ramps. It's not the easiest thing to just force field off and auto win with this push like you can in other maps. So that's the one thing that Rhett really has going for him. But as you said, the key thing behind this, above all else, is identifying that this is coming. And right now, Rhett is not scouting with these overlords at all.
Can't. The one that tried to get in there was denied by a stalker. Crank has stopped probe production at 39 probes, so 39 compared to 60. Rhett, I think, has an idea this is happening. I don't know how, I don't know what he saw, but he has an idea. So he's just going to invest a lot into roaches, of course, speedlings as well. And, you know, another thing, Rhett has been pushing forward this creep on the left side super, super hard. This is something that Nest did back on Daybreak, was push the creep first of, you know, anything else. That was the first thing he did, was push the creep on the third base to deny the proxy pylons, as well as, you know, just really help out when the engagement comes. But this is going to be a War Prism in the main attack, and he needs to have the roaches. Oh, he's already prepared. He is totally fine. Well, maybe not totally fine, but better off than he could have been.
There's... the zealots are going to be really nice, but if handled correctly, Rhett could just kite these all day. Picks up the sentries because, of course, they're quite vulnerable and exposed the way they were. There we go. Now the kiting's starting off for Rhett, and as long as he doesn't let these sentries force field off that ramp, he'll be okay to hold this. But actually shut down outright. Crank just has to back on out.
I don't know if I like that. That's really a move where you just want to find absolutely nothing except the queen and the drones in the main base, right? The fact that Red had anything up there is already, you know, good enough. So Crank lost a lot of minerals in that engagement. He still has the sentries, which is very important, as well as that War Prism. But Rhett, you know, he's totally aware this is happening now. It's no longer a, well, maybe he's not. He absolutely is. There's no third base. The Immortals are finally popping out, and he's going to be moving out very, very soon. The Proxy Pylon also is not going to be there, so the War Prism is going to have a hard time being like the micro War Prism, because it's going to be, you know, it has to be in a War Prism mode. Warp-in mode.
Yeah, I think that push too would have been a lot better if there was like 4 sentries in there instead of 2 zealots or a zealot and a stock or whatever. But engagement coming out in the middle of the map.
This isn't good.
This is not good for Red at all. He's taking engagement into Immortals, into force fields. No burrow available. Gonna just lose these roaches. And while there's not a lot more force fields to follow this up, he's not really able to push into the Immortals. There's too many zealots to buffer the damage. They kind of, in a small way, act like their own force fields. They just keep the roaches back. Hydra's Den's going to follow this up. Once he's got Hydralisks on the map, holding this push will be not a problem, but for the time being, this third base is actually in a lot of danger.
He lost so many roaches. Yeah, he pretty much took away all of the force field, so Crank has to be super, super careful. But Red did lose a lot of roaches. You know, he'd be maxed out maybe if that didn't happen. Crank, it's a free queen. Nice. And the roaches aren't going to engage you. There's no force field, so like I said, but the Immortals are in the back, and they're not going to get damage anytime soon.
No, certainly not. Red's just losing a lot of roaches to push into this rather ineffective attack, but he's just trying to buy more time with the Hydralisk. But as he does this, he's got a pretty nice bank. He's forced to spend it all on more roaches. 17 coming out. Now with the force field's gone, he gets right on top of the Immortals, and this is the sort of engagement Red needs. Picks that Immortal up, though, does Crank, keeps it alive with 1 health. Oh my god, continuing to micro like crazy. These Immortals are, well, they're not going to live much longer, but they're living so much longer than they should have. 6 health on this one. Loses 1 Immortal instead of all 3. That is insane, Zombie Grab. That is just insane. It's even
probably should
regenerating
have pulled
shields.
those drones a little bit sooner. Oh, now there's going to die, and the third is also going to go down. Rhett might have to give up the third. You know, if he's going to survive this game any longer, he's going to have to give up the third and stay on the natural. The third's going to go down.
And most importantly, behind this, Hydras have never made their way out in the field. And I don't think as well, I don't think he was expecting this insane Immortal Micro coming out of Crank. I mean, that alone was like really what made this push not just like win the fight, but decisively overwhelm Red. As you lose the third, you're going to lose even more roaches, still trying to get that Immortal. But Crank says that's not going to happen, my friend. Up to 11 kills and still standing, no shields available, but there's no more roaches to push into it.
It's just a problem that Rhett engaged the Immortal right under the War Prism, because it's going to stay like that as long as possible. So if he had, you know, found the Immortal someplace else, then it would have been a different story. But the Immortal's still alive, still a huge army for Crank. Crank up in supply against Zerg player.
What is?
That's usually a sign of a Zerg player's doom.
This is a weird Overlord spread. I just want to comment. Normally they're either clumped up or like in a bunch, but a big line of Overlords is set the natural for Red. Yeah, this kind of looks like the push of doom. Good game is going to be called. Crank will bring it up 4-3, or sorry, 4-2. More importantly, this puts Team Liquid on match point. So now we've got the potential of bringing Tasia back into the fray. Who does Team Liquid revive is going to be the biggest question right now. We'll let you guys know in chat, of course, as we're on delay. But with that, we're going to toss out some quick ads, guys. I gotta say, we're getting so close to breaking the record on Base Trade TV. 5,500 was the most we ever had on Base Trade TV ever, period. And that was our first day being cast, or being partnered. That was for the Kaspersky King of the Hill Arena. Now we're at 5,225. Oh my god, this is insane. If we break that, I'm gonna lose it, guys. I'm gonna lose it. But we're gonna toss out to some ads. 4-2. We'll see you guys in a sec.